Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news and short stories. I am Oyi Okbala. Let's begin. Amid the rise in global focus on conflict resolution and human rights, a compelling appeal has emerged from Abdul Karim Ali, a prominent Ambazonian activist currently detained by the Cameroonian government. In an impassioned open letter, Karim addresses U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, urging his intervention in the outstanding and long-standing war affecting the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, also known as Southern Cameroons. These war, not over 8 years in duration, has brought severe suffering to the Ambazonian people, fueling calls for international mediation. Abdul Karim, known for his outspoken stance on Ambazonian sovereignty and criticisms of the Cameroonian regime, was detained under circumstances he described as an abduction, punishment for his activism despite his imprisonment. Karim's resolve has not wavered. His letter to Trump stresses the incoming administration's opportunity to leverage its influence for peace in Ambazonia, where conflict has reached a devastating toll, citing Trump's past foreign policy approach, which emphasized diplomacy over military intervention. Karim employs him to stop the war in southern Cameroon by pressuring the Cameroonian government towards a negotiated settlement. This call for action taps into Trump's potential to shape a legacy defined by peace and justice, contrasting it against the actions of regimes accused of genocide and repression. Abdul Karim's letter, published following Trump's recent electoral victory, reflects a sense of urgency and hope that the new U.S. administration might champion the cause of Ambazonians' independence, bringing renewed focus to a conflict that has been largely overlooked on the international stage. The letter serves as a stark reminder of the stakes at hand, not just for Ambazonia, but for global human rights advocacy, highlighting the transformative potential of U.S. influence in conflicts of this nature. As Trump prepared for his second non-consecutive term, scheduled to begin with the inauguration on January 20th, 2025, Abdul Karim's appeal underscores the critical juncture at which international engagement might alter the course of history for Ambazonia's embattled population. Let's get the prime headlines. Here are the prime headlines for tonight. Colonial police get neutralized in a crossfire on the 13th of November in Bamenda behind the Colonial City Council premises. Well, as usual, there is no hope and guarantee for rehabilitation of roads in Bamenda, with the disturbing statistics of abandoned projects by Bia's failed regime. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll focus on colonial government's tortures and elimination of people in the Midland zone. Pro-Ambazonian Tibor Nagy Endorses Rubio for Secretary of State cites support for British Southern Cameroons. Also tonight, Ambazonian activists in Dungeon calls on U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to tackle the war in Ambazonia. In Africa, Somaliland, pursuit of recognition amidst presidential election takes center stage. While on the foreign scene, Donald Trump picks Elon Musk for new cost-cutting role. Now let's get the news in full briefings. The The dry season is announcing itself with the increasing amount of dust in the air in the city of Bamenda. There is a glimmer of hope that the earth road in town will soon be turned and the dust will be history. The recent statistics of the abandonment of the investment project by the colonial regime, there is no guarantee for the completion of the rehabilitation work on the roads in Bamenda. As analyzed by the Guardian Post, a newspaper that publishes daily in the Cameroons, there is astronomical rate of contractors abandoning investment projects in the Cameroons. And of course, it is very alarming. From our investigation between 2021 and last year, some 210 project contracts were abandoned by contractors without any justification. Well, according to a statement by the Colonial Ministry of Public Contracts, the deplorable trend is a serious concern given the negative impact on the population, especially considering the direct relationship between reaching project objectives and the long-term development of a country. The abandonment of investments and its projects by contractors denotes two major things. Either the contracts are being awarded to the wrong contractors or the regime is not providing the agreed funds for the completion of the project. Hence, explain why a contractor would avoid a government project. Denizens of the city of Bamenda should strategize ways to cope with the dust to avoid associated illness as the dry season weighs in. And this is highly sad. Be it dry season, be it rainy season, whatever season Ambazonians find themselves in, they would have to suffer whatever that season brings. When it's rainy season, they suffer flood. When it's dry season, they suffer dust. Barrister Mbeseha is our in-house analyst. I'm sure he would want to say a thing or two before we proceed with the rest of the reports this evening. Barrister Mbeseha, it's going to be a hard time this dry season. After they've dealt with the flood during the raining season, they would have to deal with the dust this time around. How sad.
Well, thank you for having me. I doubt if this dry season is very different from the last one, or from the one 5 years, 6 years, long time behind. But why is this particular dry season important? Why is this project now bringing us to that light? It is simply because I think, if I don't forget, Bamenda is a very important town in terms of what we are suffering now as Ambazonia. Because of its importance, Bamenda attracted the head of state of Cameroon in the name of the ambassador of France, who came there with his two empty legs and promised to the world that he was going to rehabilitate Bamenda, not only Bamenda, but the whole Northwest region, they call it. And here we are, instead of improvement, the thing has deteriorated. And so you go behind the scene again and ask, according to the newspaper report, hundreds of contracts have been abandoned. And so if you take yourself out of Bamenda a bit, you look at the nation called Cameroon in terms of roads. Their roads have deteriorated 104, at least 84. So Bamenda is only one of the several terribly deteriorated roads in the country. But why are they deteriorating? You may ask, go back to that newspaper article. Why are contractors abandoning the jobs? One may ask. A contractor takes a contract to perform and get profit. They are money-making companies. I say, why will you abandon a money-making venture to go sleep at home? The only reason I think is that even for the few contracts that they have executed, they have not been paid. And if I'm correct again, in terms of contracts in Cameroon, when you take a contract, they have to advance a portion of the money. You do it to a certain degree, they give you another part. But if they give you a contract and you have to take money from a bank loan, and so they don't pay you, the obvious thing is that you abandon it. That's a fact. That's just the truth. So what might be happening in Bamenda, what is happening in Bamenda is certainly due to two things. The first thing is it is political, They don't want to invest anywhere in Ambazonia because Bamenda is only one of the several cities. The second point is that if they wanted to invest there, they don't have the money. They are bankrupt. And there's all evidence to point to that. I think earlier this week, was it Monday, we were talking about the CDC worker strike. The CDC workers work in plantations. They grow things that are edible. They grow food. They grow bananas. They grow palm nuts, palm trees from which you harvest palm nuts. These are things that we eat with. The ordinary price of palm oil in Cameroon has grown higher. And if the CDC is selling their own palm oil, why would your workers not have a pay? They grow bananas. If they are selling the bananas, they are not lying there rotting in the bush. Why are their workers not being paid? They are working in the rubber plantations. Rubber is selling at the highest price in the market. Why are they not being paid? The simple reason is what the general manager gave them. They are gone for commercial bank loans. And no bank is prepared to negotiate it for them because their loans have to be guaranteed by the Cameroon government. And the Cameroon government is already a bankrupt state. Why would somebody give them the money? The same thing goes to the roads. And so it's unfortunate that what they know in Bamenda, again, I've said it before, where is the French ambassador who stood there and promised us gold and silver? This is just development. Where is he? When the ambassador of France speaks, France is speaking. Macron is speaking. Where are the promises he made just 3, 4, 5 months ago? They are lying. They have been lying, and they continue to lie. Don't trust in them. The only way out is let's get out of this nonsense, and we're fighting to get out of it. And we'll take our roads, do what we can, bring them to what they used to be before they destroy them. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. So it's not just road and all of the economic hardship that the people are going to face. Torture is another one altogether. All right, so tonight on Undaunted, we have this report about a colonial officer being killed in a crossfire. Now, this crossfire, this accident or this event happened in Bamenda behind the Colonial City Council premises. And the Colonial talks were surprised at the extortion points that they mounted. What happened exactly? So the Ambazonian State Army has dismantled the Colonial makeshift extortion point planted behind the Colonial City Bamenda premises, leaving one of the forces of occupation neutralized. The colonial policemen of the unit lodged at the former Hisakam head office premises. They were very surprised at about 8 a.m. on Wednesday, November 13, 2024, as they planted an extortion point by the Ambazonian State Army. The confrontation created an atmosphere of fear with the thunderous gunshots. After persistent shouting, inhabitants of Bamenda noticed a lifeless colonial police lying behind an army rescue pickup at high speed at the Bamenda Regional Hospital mortuary. At press time, no official reaction to the incident has been made by the colonial authorities, but those at the Bamenda Regional Hospital mortuary confirmed that the destination of the colonial pickup was the mortuary and the casualty unit. The Ambazonian State Army has taken the mandate to make Ambazonia ungovernable by the forces of occupation and the colonial administrators till they are completely out of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. No casualty, however, has been recorded on the part of the Ambazonian State Army or the citizens that they protect. And of course, in this reaction, the UN is rising. So today, La Republic de Cameroon is set to answer questions about its human rights record before the UN Committee Against Torture. So this hearing comes after 51 leaders urged President Paul Biya to stop torture and human rights abuses under British Southern Cameroon and La Republic de Cameroon. The Biya's regime will answer questions from the committee on its human rights practices and possibly in light of the recent petition earlier signed by 51 prominent leaders calling for urgent reforms. The senseless war in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, which began in 2016, stems from long-standing grievances among Ambazonian citizens, particularly in the Atlantic mainland and Midland zones of the country. Violence and instability have been the order of the day so far, resulting in over 60,000 deaths and displacing more than 1.5 million people. Many innocent civilians have been caught in the crossfire between their dictatorial government forces and freedom-fighting groups, leading to widespread reports of human rights violations. During this season and session, the committee will review the country's compliance with international human rights standards. BS government will address serious allegations of torture and abuse, especially in Ambazonia, crippled by the war it waged on her. The UN committee is expected to focus on the treatment of individuals in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, where the conflict has led to severe humanitarian crisis, including inadequate access to education and healthcare. Human rights advocates hope that today's discussion will shed light on the actions of the so-called security forces who have been accused of perpetuating violence against civilians instead of protecting them. To the British Southern Cameroonians, there is a glimmer of hope. They are eager for their concerns to be acknowledged. Freedom fighters believe that this engagement with the UN committee could lead to a significant change in how human rights are upheld in La République du Cameroon. Their citizens are hopeful that the committee's scrutiny will prompt the colonial government to take meaningful steps to improve their situation on the ground and end the suffering of the Ambazonians caused by the senseless war. Barrister Mbeseha, you would agree with me that this is a gigantic step.
Yes, it's a very, very gigantic. It's a very, very gigantic step. But let me start from the death of the policeman caught under Crossfire. Now, if the story is true, and I'm not doubting it is true, whether they put it there officially or not, the policeman is dead. He's dead under Crossfire. Crossfire means there's firing from all the angles. So you get a victim. This time around, the victim is a policeman. It could be you, it could be me. And so, what do we call Bamenda in the face of these crossfires? This is not the first one. We call it a war zone. That's an active war. It doesn't matter what the archbishop tells you, what the pastors tell you. Bamenda, like most of Ambazonia, is an active war zone. And so this is not somebody who pretend, be it the French ambassador, be it whoever, that everything is returning to normal. No, they're lying. They're just lying. Crossfires are signs of active war. It's not an incident where somebody hides in the bush and shoots you. No, it's crossfire. And the man who falls is the guy who has all the arms. Policemen are properly armed with AK-47s and beyond. And so this is an active war zone. What is happening there today, where the death of that policeman, is what has been going on in Ambazonia everywhere for the past 6 years, 7 years. And so that will take us back to the UN hearings on torture, which are ongoing. We happen to have had the glimpses of what they said, part of the testimony that came from there, recorded testimony of what was going on. If you had the opportunity to listen to that thing, you realize that the prosecutors there are not Ambazonians. Okay. They're not Cameroonians. They're just human rights groups. If you listen to that hearing as it is ongoing, you'll be surprised that those people who have taken records of all these things, are even more informed than us Ambazonians about what is going on. For example, I heard them give precise number of mass graves in Cameroon. And if Cameroon doubts it, they should give them access. They'll go there and resume the corpses. I heard them insist on Galbo and tell you, look, that happened 2020 or something. You promised that you are punishing the people who have not seen the punishment. Justify yourself. I heard them cry out that you have sent people to jail, adopted people from Ambazonia. You have gone across without even a extradition agreement and extracted people from foreign countries to bring them back there. Where are they? They're questioning them. And so they have these detailed reports of what is going on in Ambazonia. As far as that thing is concerned, that hearing is concerned, the government of Cameroon, their back is on the wall. These international organizations have the names of the individuals. They showed pictures of the torture, how they tortured people. They told stories of what happened to people in Kwakwa. They told the story of what happened to those children. It is on the table. It's not sent there by us. And so we can only be encouraged. What can that group do? That group can only highlight the degree of the suffering to which we were exposed. That group cannot come and catch Yaoundé and take them to jail. They cannot take any minister. But they can help us, as they're helping us. They can help the world to understand what is going on there. Their actions, and that is the United Nations organization. Their actions and their recording might be very, very useful, and they are useful indeed, in the possible prosecution of the perpetrators at the ICC or in the other international court. And so we have all these opportunities to have these highlights put there for us by someone other than ourselves. Are they credible? Of course, Cameroonians are sitting on the other side of the table as defendants. We're not sitting on the other side as prosecutors. Sympathizers, all these human rights groups are prosecuting are our sympathizers. What is going on? How far can this help us? We can take all these records again to this international organization. And above all, we can take these very records of what is now put out officially back even to the African Union. Because remember, there's something we call the Banjul decision, 2009. The Banjul decision came out. In that Banjul case, Ambazonia had argued that they had the right to self-determination. They were people. That's the court that said, look, Ambazonia, British Southern Cameroonians, they are a people. And they are a people, as a people, they have the right to self-determination. That's what the court said. And what asked for self-determination in that case. And Yaoundé responded that, look, and the court concluded that they could only go out of this union if they completely show that there's massive human rights abuses, which you can no longer tolerate. It's found in the Banjul decision. And so this is clear evidence that should be helpful to us. Going back to other international organizations that have a listening ear to us. There are the very things, some of the things, if not all, that we would use to go to the new Trump administration, which are coming to analyze in a few minutes in the finished time. So that thing is very, very important. The hearing is important. The crossfire killing of the policeman is important. For people who live on the ground, fortunately, for liars who have convinced every human being there that life has returned to normalcy. Because you will die unless you take care of yourself. So there's no normalcy there. Why? Because there's war. Why? There are people declare the war on unarmed people. Because if you see the reports that's going on in Geneva, the people are unarmed. They talk about Ngarabu and tell what happened there. These people are not even armed. They talk about Kwakwa, they talk about Kimbo. These are unarmed people they came and killed. They talk about Cameroon going across borders, even to Equatorial Guinea or whatever in Gabon, and adopting people and bringing them back to try them. They talk about the detention centers where the Abdul Karims, the Sisikus have gone through. They talk about keeping people there without access to their lawyers and extracting confessions from people and jailing them with it. It is in that report now I saw it being given there. And so on and so forth. And so I think it's a very useful development to us. We don't know those who did it. We can only say thank you for helping us expose this thing. Because if we were the one who have done the story, but people will not believe us because they would think that we're biased. We're telling the story that will favor us. But when the story is told like that by somebody else, you know that it's a story. In that story, for example, they went to the prisons. They went to Kondingi and said this is a prison that's supposed to hold 100 and there are about 800 people. They have more than 5,000 there. It's in that report. He went to Douala and said, this is a prison that is supposed to hold, say, 500 people. They have 10,000 there. How did they get there? Government took them there. Government was there. What they didn't hear, I didn't hear from the report that they went to Buya or Bamenda. Because they cannot go there on their own. Government has to take you there. They took them to Douala by themselves, took them to Kondengi by themselves. But what the records of Kondengi and Douala show on their records is a replica of what is happening in all the prisons in Cameroon. That's across the board. And so this is very, very important to us. They kept this thing. When we know that they are gone there, somebody has summoned this council on torture, and the evidence is being, they're keeping them there in books. It's not that you and me are just talking. They have records of them in writing. They have testimonies of people. And so we can also say, congratulations, thank those who are doing this job for us. We can only pray that this should help us cross the border, the final line. Over to you.
Oh, very much. But that's not even all there is when it comes to torture and murders and all of these sad cases. So I think that the UN would have to pay a close attention because as I speak to you, this report about the brutal torture and murder of Mbeseha, a respected community member in Baba One area of the Midland, British Southern Cameroon, has ignited outrage as relatives demand accountability from the BS regime. Now, locally, as Mr. Wandero Mofeseme Smela was arrested by agents of La Republic du Cameroon military on the 11th of November 2024 in Baba One. Well, according to sources who prefers to remain anonymous, the victim suffered severe torture before being killed. His body was later discovered at his workplace, a scene which shocked the community. The dark military agents of the Colonial administration left a gun on Smela's body, attempting to label him as a separatist fighter. However, his family and friends have come out to strongly reject these claims, insisting he was a respected former vice principal of government secondary school Vingang. They also reported that his mobile money wallet had been emptied prior to his death, raising suspicions of a premeditated act of violence by the elements of the BS regime. While relatives and friends are demanding justice for smaller activists and community leaders are condemning the violent actions of the colonial forces, calling for an end to the torture and killing that keeps plaguing Ambazonia and Ambazonians in general. So this is what we're talking about. This is a kind of torture. This is a kind of humiliation. This is a kind of pain and anguish that Ambazonians go through on a regular basis. So there is a whole lot for the UN to do. Now, moving on to other reports for tonight. Let's take a look at the next report that we have for tonight. The Tibor Nagy is on the case for Ambazonians. Well, a former senior U.S. diplomat is backing Senator Marco Rubio's expected nomination as Secretary of State, praising his long-standing commitment to the British Southern Cameroon's courts. Well, that's not all. Tibor Nagy, former Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, has highlighted Rubio's advocacy for the Ambazonian people who are fighting for greater autonomy from La Republic to Cameroon. This has been a long fight. So in a recent social media post, Tibor Nagy, the former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, expressed strong support for Senator Marco Rubio's nomination as Secretary of State. Nagy praised Rubio's unwavering advocacy for British Southern Cameroons who struggle for independence as being at the center of violence and ongoing with the central government of La Republic de Cameroon. You would know that in recent years, the war in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia has escalated, with the country's people and the natives facing political and economic marginalization by the French-speaking colonial government. Rubio, who is a vocal supporter of human rights, has been one of the few U.S. lawmakers to consistently draw attention to the plight of Ambazonian people. Nagy recalled Rubio's efforts during his time as Assistant Secretary of State, noting that Rubio was one of the few in Congress showing real interest in justice for British Southern Cameroonians. Where Rubio's poised to lead U.S. foreign policy, Tibor Nagy sees it as an opportunity for Ambazonians to, gain more international attention and support as well. According to him, he says now more than ever, it's critical for Ambazonians to unite and make their case to the world. This is what Nagy said. And Nagy believes that Rubio, if confirmed, could steer the U.S. diplomacy to focus more sharply on human rights in La Republic to Cameroon and potentially offer, what we call a lifeline to those seeking a resolution to the war. For advocates of the Southern Cameroon's cause, Rubio's potential appointment offers hope that the U.S. might increase diplomatic measures on their colonizers and push for peace talks. The coming months will reveal if Rubio's leadership could help bring about the change many have long called for. Well, Barrister Mbeseha, this is a very interesting one, but I think that you would want us to do the Abdul Karim story so that you could take both of them together, or would you want to react on this Tibor Nagy report first, or do you want us to go straight to the Abdul Karim's report?
Now do the Abdul Karim's report so we can take both of them together.
All right, let's go. So, of course, the incarcerated Ambazonian loyalist Abdul Karim has called on Donald Trump to look into the 8 years and counting war in Federal Republic of Ambazonia. So, Abdul Karim, from history, was kidnapped and held in captivity by La Republic to Cameroon colonial government for his views that disfavored the La Republic to Cameroon regime. So he was jailed. Abdul Karim Ali has appealed to the president-elect of the United States, Donald Trump, to end the ongoing war in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. He requested in an open letter that followed Trump's victory in the 5th of November U.S. election. Trump was sworn in for the second non-consecutive term on 20th January 2025. He says, as you prepare to take office, your legacy should be at the forefront of your mind, as the world will remember you for your actions and inaction. Whether it's for war or peace, justice or injustice, development or destruction, and humanity or vanity. Now, these were the words of Abdul Karim in that letter. Reading between the line, you could feel the energy there. Now, this experience convinces Abdul Karim to believe that we have seen you in that office before, and it's been encouraged that you did not start words. Neither did you support genocides and dictators. Everyone knows what Trump can do. Abdul Karim urged the incoming Trump administration to stop the war in Southern Cameroon and deploy leverages on the colonial government of La Republic to Cameroon to engage them in a mediated settlement. He goes on to say that Trump's leadership can shape the future of the world in general, and of course, Ambazonia as a nation, and hopeful that he will make positive impact. Mr. Trump had in several campaign outings promised to end the wars in Palestine and Ukraine, and we just hope that it's going to include Ambazonia at this point. Though no mention so far has been made for the wars in Cameroon. Well, Tibor Nagy, who we just finished taking his story, who served in the first Trump administration as Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, hinted that the colonial government is likely to receive pressure from the incoming administration over the mistreatment of the Ambazonians and Ambazonians in general. So, Barrister Mbeseha, I know this was the tea you were looking for to wrap up with that of Rubio's hit story as well. So, the tea and the bread has been placed on your table. Please give me your take.
Yes, thank you again for having me. But before I get there, let me just go back to the death of this teacher who they killed in the last segment. And they want to add this. They killed him, don't deny that. And they they planted guns on him.
Oh, okay.
Maybe with purpose to show that he's an Ambazonian fighter. Okay, that's what they did. But what I want to say is that no law in the world allows you to shoot people because they are of a particular breed. If being a separatist is a crime in Cameroon, you don't have the right to shoot and kill separatists. Arrest them, put them before a court, and let them have their day. So to take upon yourself to kill him or her and brand him a terrorist, brand him a separatist is not acceptable. And again, as I said, in that report, that hearing going on now, I heard them question these people Republic, you have been detaining people for months and years. The law says that when you take someone into custody, and if he's not committed any crime, you have to compensate that person for the detention. And they ask, I want to show proof that even the people they have released have ever been compensated. Nobody's ever compensated. And so they are now on their knees, I guess, begging. But over to this issue of Tibor Nagy, Abdul Karim, and the new administration coming in. I will analyze and then I will show how what these hearings going on now are tied up together can be very useful to us. You see, let us start from Abdul Karim. Who's Abdul Karim? Abdul Karim has been in detention for close to 2 years. To the best of my knowledge, Abdul Karim has not been tried for any crime committed. He has done nothing. He has not been charged. He has not been gone to any court. He has not been sentenced for anything. Then why are you keeping him there under this torture? To the best of our knowledge, Abdul Karim was abducted. He was not arrested with any warrant. So it fits into the same narrative of abductions and torture. Is Abdul Karim living a normal life in prison? No. But Abdul Karim is in detention. He's in this incarceration. And what he has written out there, we call it an open letter. He's written an open letter to the Trump incoming president. What is an open letter? An open letter is meant to be published out there for you and me to read, anybody in the world to read, with the hope that those who are closer to the power to which it is addressed, some of them will pick it up and then will make the case that the guy has put there. Open letters contain a lot of information, often information that any reasonable person would sympathize with. So if you just read that open letter, what would you say they are keeping Abdul Karim for doing? Nothing. If you take them to the Trump administration coming in, there are politicians coming in to Washington, D.C., come January 20th. Should they pick up this? They should. They should. Why? Because if, for example, as Tibor Nagy says, it is successfully put Rubio in the position where he is, where he's being proposed to be put there, there's 90% chance that Rubio will take that case with seriousness. Why? Because Rubio is from Cuba. He escaped here. His parents and himself, they escaped here, escaping from this sort of nonsense in Cuba. So human rights violations should go to had they escaped for human rights violations in Cuba and his parents, and they've not gone back there. So those are cases that you should take seriously if you had the opportunity to influence anything. And therefore, as I was saying, if you take this report of the hearings going on in Geneva on the torture, on human rights violations, take it to the White House, the incoming White House, the department of which will be headed probably by Rubio, and then marry all these things together, we have no reason to doubt that they will take our case seriously. What do we need to do is the question. And I said here before, our people involved in diplomacy, in handling this aspect of the thing, these two have 2 months, just like the administration is preparing itself to go in 2 months. They too have 2 months for preparing their file, to be dotting their I's and cutting their T's as to what they tell Rubio or whoever comes into the administration. What has happened now to us, what's happening in New York, is just a reminder. In Geneva, it's just a reminder that whoever is taking that file there will simply go to Trump and say, Mr. Trump, you left us here 4 years ago. This problem was already on the table. You've come back, the problem is still there. It is rather gone from bad to worse. This is evidence. Come from the United Nations hearing in New York, in Geneva. This is the Abdul Karim, who probably visited you in the White House then. He has been detained for the past 3-4 years for doing nothing. That's his face there. And so that will only go to foster our case, to strengthen the case that we have. And so, again, as I said before, we're lucky to still have Tibor Nagy, who is an insider because he knows these individuals in their persons. He can point to us who are important in this thing. If we go closer to him, he can even tell us how to get to them. This is how we can talk to them, and hopefully we'll get a resolution of our problem. We are victims of the system. Marco Rubio was a victim of the Cuban repression. We're just victims. They're like Abdul Karim. What is his crime? They're talking about journalist. He was not a journalist. He was just a civil society activist. And because probably he did not have the same view with the government, he's in detention for almost 2 years. It is not enough to release Abdul Karim. As per the hearings going on in Geneva now, Abdul Karim and hundreds and thousands of others have to be compensated for their loss of liberty, for their moral, for the pain they went through, they themselves and their families. As long as it is humanly possible, this kind, they remain there forever. If Bobia dies, this is hands on the government of Cameroon. So don't be discouraged. We'll take action. All of you who are there on justice will be compensated. And we thank Abdul Karim for taking upon himself, taking out this initiative. This is the second time he does it. First time was about 2-3 months ago. We saw something he put out there. But he promised that I'm not going to your court because I don't belong there. He doesn't have the physical force not to. He will come and catch you and take them, tie your legs and carry you there. But you have cried, you have made your noise. You have told the world, I'm not coming there because I don't belong there. So we thank Abdul Karim for still having the courage, for still having the morality to brief it. They have killed his physical self. They have not killed his soul. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Thank you so much for those apt, reactions and explanation. It seems like the light is shining and it's shining brighter as the day comes by, and there is a lot of hope, not just a glimmer. There is a lot of hopes, more like a galaxy of hope for Ambazonians at this point. And so we'll just watch and see how things unfold. All right, thank you so much for being part of tonight's Undaunted. This week on Undaunted comes up on Saturday, and I'm sure that you are also getting ready to be part of it, where we'll expand and talk about a lot of things yet to happen.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so coming up next is News Occurs Africa. Oh, well, elections officials in Somaliland are busy counting ballots after the latest presidential election held on Wednesday, marking the fourth time the autonomous region has held such an election since breaking away from Somalia over 30 years ago. Well, according to the Election Commission, voting day proceeded without incident, underscoring the region's stability in its governance efforts. First, Mbeseha, seeking re-election, faced challenges from opposition leader Abdurrahman Mohamed Abdullahi of the Wadani party of Faisal Ali Warabe from the UCID party. Preliminary results are anticipated by late Friday, while final tallies may take up to a week. One of the key issues dominating this election was Somaliland's recent agreement with Ethiopia, granting the latter access to 220 kilometers of its coastline along the Gulf of Aden in exchange for diplomatic recognition. This deal has sparked backlash from Somalia, which considers it as an infringement on its sovereignty and has sought assistance from Egypt and Eritrea to counter Ethiopia's influence. Despite existing as a self governing entity for over 3 decades, Somaliland remains unrecognized as an independent nation by the international community. Leaders hope this election brings Somaliland closer to international legitimacy and strengthens its bid for formal recognition. Somaliland's recognition highlights both the stride it has made towards stable governance and the challenges it faces in gaining international recognition. With ongoing geopolitical tensions and Somalia's resistance to independence, Somalia's leaders remain committed to seeking acknowledgement as a sovereign state. Let's check South Africa. The South African government has announced it will not offer assistance to an estimated 4,000 illegal miners trapped inside a closed mine in Northwest Province, as their miners have been cut off from food, water, and basic supplies since police blocked their entry points as part of the Vala Umgodi or closed the whole operation designed to curb illegal mining activities. The operation aimed to force the miners to surface and surrender, with reports indicating that over 1,000 miners have already emerged, many in a weakened state, according to police. Spokesman Sabata Mongobone recent data suggests that up to 4,000 miners remain underground, with no official estimates confirmed. As the police maintain strict surveillance of the area, authorities anticipate more miners will appear. Despite concerns about the miners' welfare, Cabinet Minister Kumbuzo Nashavani has firmly stated that no help will be extended as those involved are engaged in criminal activities. In his words, says, "We are not sending help to criminals," she affirmed, underscoring the government's intent to smoke them out. The illegal mining in South Africa's old mines has persisted as a serious issue, drawing miners from neighboring countries and fueling syndicates that control operations. The presence of these miners has led to heightened crime amongst nearby communities, with incidents ranging from theft to violence. Confrontations between the rival groups. South Africa's crackdown on illegal mining reflects the government's commitment to tackling criminal networks within the mining sector. However, the operation raises ethical questions about how best to handle the welfare of vulnerable miners, especially those forced underground by poverty, balancing security with humanitarian considerations, which remains a challenge for South African authorities. Well, that's the end of that report. Let's get news across the globe. Oh, well, Donald Trump has tapped Elon Musk to lead a government efficiency task force aiming to conduct a comprehensive audit of the federal government and recommend drastic reforms. This move comes as Trump prepares to return to the White House, vowing to dismantle bureaucracy and streamline government's operation. Musk, who has already agreed to lead the proposed commission, has expressed his interest in the role, stating that he looks forward to serving America without seeking pay, title, or recognition. The billionaire CEO's involvement in the task force has sparked interest given his reputation for innovative thinking and cost-cutting measures. During a speech in New York, Trump praised Musk as the greatest quarter, referencing the thousands of workers he laid off as Tesla's earlier this year. Musk's ability to trim the fat and optimize resources is seen as a valuable asset in Trump's quest to reduce government's waste and inefficiency. The proposed commission is expected to conduct a thorough review of the federal government's financial and performance metrics, identifying areas for improvement and recommending sweeping reforms. As Trump prepares to take office, his administration is gearing up to tackle the complex task of streamlining government operations and eliminating bureaucracy. How about the BRICS? Well, last month, the BRICS countries held their 16th summit in the Russian city of Kazan, this time featuring an expanded membership. Among the discussions, Russia repeatedly made calls for further development and alternative international payment system. In his joint declaration at the end of the summit, BRICS members encouraged the strengthening of correspondent banking networks within BRICS and enabling settlements in local currencies in line with BRICS cross-border payments initiative. This initiative also known as BRICS payment, is a planned, decentralized, and independent payment messaging mechanism system for BRICS nations to trade with each other through their own currencies. BRICS Pay was first proposed in 2018 as a way for the developing nations to better trade with each other. However, it was during the summit in 2022 that BRICS Pay became seen as a possibility to bypass the SWIFT. Not just the SWIFT, but the SWIFT network, the internationally recognized standard for global bank transaction and one of the main pillars of Western transactions against Russia. Since its invasion of Ukraine, the resulting sanctions have made it difficult for Russia to trade with its allies as it is barred from using SWIFT or the US dollar. Meanwhile, the Republican Party has achieved full control of the U.S. government after media projected wins for the party in a handful of close races in the House of Representatives. Republicans won the majority in the Senate earlier this week, while Donald Trump won the race for the presidency. The trifecta last achieved at the start of Trump's first term in 2017 will give the president-elect a significant authority to enact his agenda on the economy, immigration, and other key roles. It also leaves Democrats with less leverage to challenge policies they disagree with, though narrow margins mean Senate Republicans could still struggle to secure enough votes for some actions. Now, that's all for the news, but before we go, let's take the recap of the major highlights. All right, tonight on Undaunted, we told you that one Colonial police gets neutralized in a crossfire on the 13th of November in Bamenda behind the Colonial City Council premises. Well, we told you today that there is no hope for and guarantee for rehabilitation of roads in Bamenda with the disturbing statistics of abandoning projects by Bia's regime. Colonial government tortures and eliminates Midland zone residents. Tonight on Undaunted, we talked about Pro-Ambazonian Tibor Nagy, who endorsed Rubio for Secretary of State, citing his support for Ambazonia. Also, Ambazonian activist in Dungeon calls for U.S. President-elect to tackle the war in Ambazonia. On the African scene, we told you that Somaliland's pursuit of recognition amidst presidential election is on the increase, while Donald Trump picks Elon Musk for new cost-cutting role. That's it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of the technical crew, it's good night and God bless you.